Meeting for parks, preserves and pathways. So the first thing we need to do, let's call it to order, but let's do roll call.
Sure. Heather Berkowitz, myself, present. Rita Quinthorne,
Present.
Anna Cohen. Present. Steve Hurt,
Present.
Steve Kern, Patrick McLaughlin. Thomas Morse.
Here.
Roy Townsend,
Present.
Liz Wiseman.
Present. And next we have adoption of the agenda, but we'd like to make one change because we'd like to move our Eagle Scout Brendan Brulé. Did I say that right, Brendan? Up to just after D, which is the public comment. So with that change.
Yeah, I'll move the agenda with that modification.
Second.
Yeah, go Tom.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we can open up for public comment.
Great, I see Kathleen Brent. Would you like to share?
No, I'm not going to share. Hi, this is Kathleen Brand, a Scio resident. I just had one quick question. In the meeting minutes from the last meeting, it states under the Van Curler portion, it said the planning commission sent letters out to residents about available land. Is that correct? That the planning commission did that? Or was it maybe the LPC?
So that you, I believe you spoke to that, to the letters.
Oh,
being
yes,
sent out. Was that
if you're LPC did send letters advising the township residents of the existence of a conservation easement program.
So that was my mistake. I wrote planning
Oh, I see.
commission in our meeting minutes.
Okay, we can change that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay. Any others?
No other hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay. Great. You guys want to make a public comment? Okay. All right. So with that, the next thing we can do is the approval of the minutes for last meeting.
Didn't we want Brandon to talk a little bit about this
Do
project?
you want to do it now?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we moved H up to.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You're right. I just skipped right over that. All right.
I can give a little intro
Sure,
for Brandon. So
please do.
Okay, thanks.
So it has been in conversation to have a play space in Township Hall Park for quite a while. Before I came, I was finding documents with little sketches of play spaces there. Like 5 years ago, I think it was in the conversation. Rita, is that true? When you came onto parks, it was kind of one of those items people threw around, right?
Oh, we went out and looked at it just like we did today and we really got, yeah.
So when Brandon came to us saying that he's interested in doing this play space project, it just seemed like Township Hall would be a great fit. It's one of our properties that actually has a dry area fit for a play space like this. So this is a very exciting project. We're very glad you're here. The play space committee is very excited to work with you, and we've had fun thus far, just kind of dreaming about that space and visiting other natural play spaces. So for folks on Zoom, I'll just say Brandon is here with us to talk a bit about his idea for the project of a play space at Township Hall Park. And then I thought it'd be great to have kind of a little question period with folks here on the PPP committee with Brandon. I'll get the camera on you shortly.
You can actually,
Yeah.
you can sit there.
Yeah, we're gonna make the camera so that
It's on.
I'm trying to make.
Or-
Microphone right above you.
Yeah, if you wanna start, I'll work on the camera over here and then people on Zoom will see you.
All right. I'm Brendan Burlett. I am a Life Scout for Troop 5. We held our meetings at Zion Church. That's pretty much it for our troop. I came over here thinking about doing a nature playground with you guys, and you guys were itching to go, because you are for 5 years. And so what I'm proposing is at Township Hall Park behind us right now, of putting a small nature area that is fit so kids can come play here, since it's not being used as much by the general public besides the flyers. And so it'd be a nature playground with logs, maybe a stage, some sand parrots, place for kids to come enjoy and have their parents and grandparents come watch them play, but also to watch their dogs. So it'd be pretty fun. Are there any questions?
Have you figured out where to place this, exactly where?
Yes, we just went outside to do that. And so in the park, I can send out a image of the park. Here. To each of you. And you'll look and see number 3, the big field. And so in between that field and the parking area, there's a bit of a gray space where I think on there it's beige. And it's right now it's pretty barren, has some dead grass and dead weeds, but there's also pine trees in there. And so when you walk up into it, you have the roadway for the trucks to come for the flyers, and you have the sign, this is the flyer, and the trail kind of splits. One is the road keeps going to the field, and the other one goes along the edge of the whole park, and so you can kind of see it if you go outside. But if you keep following the one to the trail, there's just kind of a grass trail. You'll get to a plain area, and so there's gonna would be an entrance there. So you would go out, and you can see kind of a flat area, pretty flat, and it's also pretty open. There's no trees. There's a small pine tree in the middle that we're thinking about keeping there, so kids can join and run around it. And that area is pretty flat. You don't really have to level that much out. And so it'd be, once you also, if you go out there and you go along the road path, there's a orange post. The entrance through the road would be over towards there. So you kind of can get in the area, just that flat area of it. So that's where the park would be.
Could you elaborate on some of the types of play spots that you would have and the kind of materials that you would use?
So the materials we'd probably use would be wood, variations of wood, either just stumps, logs, or maybe 2x4s. We were talking about, for one section of the park, being a stage area for kids to go up and run play on and do skits on. And so that area would probably be made up of some 2x4s all together to make a stage. And then at the bottom of the stage would be stumps for the grandparents or parents to watch their kids play. Another station would be just sand pits for people to play in. We'd probably have like 1 or 2 toys for them to use in the sand area. Other areas would be, what I imagined would be a hollowed out tree that you could crawl into, and then some stumps that are at the side of the log that you could climb onto the hollowed out log. Another area could be one where there's 2 logs on the bottom and then 2 power logs at the top, and the logs would be connected with rope, and so it would be kind of like a ladder. So that'd be something they could do, and that'd be another section. Any other questions?
There's a place northwest of Chelsea, and I can't remember the name right now. It's in the Waterloo Recreation Area, where
The Eddie Center.
the Eddie Center, right, at the Eddie Center, they have some playstations like that. Have you been out there?
I've been to Waterloo. I don't think I've been to there.
It's at the Eddie, it's right by the nature center. They have a little nature center there. And they have this play area, and they have a stage, which I think is kind of neat for the kids, like you're describing, a really low stage. It's only like 4 inches off the ground. It's basically it's something like a 4x4 frame, something like that, made out of 4x4 wood. And they have some hollowed out trees. So they have some basically some logs that are about, my gosh, there must be 3 or 4 feet in diameter, real big logs, real big sections. And then somehow they drilled it out using a machine. It's a pretty smooth bore. It was a little bit too small for me to get in, but kids could run in there. I thought that was pretty neat. And one question I had is, do you know how to, is that what you're, 2 questions, is that what you're contemplating? And number 2, do you know how to, do you have a drill bit that big?
Yes, that was kind of what I'm thinking. What I think what you're describing is what I was thinking of, just like a big log that would be hollowed out for kids to crawl into. And so they could do that. I don't have a drill bit that big.
There must be some machine. I mean, I know I could do it, you could do it with hand tools, but would be horribly, it would be uneven, it would take a long time, I'd probably hurt myself, but there's somehow they did it out there, is the point I wanted to raise. It looks like it was maybe a big, I don't know, a big auger or something that went through and hollowed this out to a diameter of maybe 3 feet, maybe more.
It could be a wood carving tool where a lot of wood carvers will take a piece of log and they'll put it on like a pedestal and they'll use a drill bit where it'll spin on it, and then you can move the log to how you want it. And so it'd go in and the log would be spinning.
Like a lathe.
Like a lathe.
This is real big. I don't know. I just don't know. You know, if you had a big enough lathe, you could make a tool a cutting tool that would go down into, imagine vertical, because then you're transmitting the load down. But you could, if you had a vertical lathe, like a big potter's wheel with 1,000-pound capacity, you could make a tool that cut down into it. I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
Discussed a little bit today, having the play-based committee and Brandon meet with Alan Samuels
Yeah.
from Scio Schooler and his who we spoke with. I think that could be a great connection. Maybe he'd have some local resources to ask those questions too.
Are there any other questions?
I have another question. So Brandon, your role in this is to organize it and recruit some other scouts to help. Is that the idea?
So basically through this proposal process, I'm allowed to work with you guys as much as I can, and I would like to help as much as I can. And so using you guys is a really good source of information. And so once we come up with an idea, I would present that idea to my troop and an Eagle committee. And if that got approved, I could then start doing stuff. And we could still keep working together, getting all the materials, getting any permits we need, and anything to do with money, like if I need to raise more money or if I don't. And then once my actual project comes upon and I need to start working, you guys could still help me with it, but I would have to be the one leading it and supervising. I could go to you guys if there was a problem that we came up with, see if we can come up with a solution. But I would have to be supervising the actual work being done. And you guys could come and work with me and do it. But I'm not supposed to actually be working on it. I'm supposed to be supervising it and planning the whole thing.
So then you would be in charge of coming up with the budget and the line items for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the ideas that you've had so far, notwithstanding the meeting we had out there, because we were throwing a whole bunch of other stuff at you that you couldn't have accommodated or accounted for. Have you come up with a rough budget for what you had in your workbook there already?
For my workbook, I had a lot going on. For the logs in the area, I couldn't really figure out a price for that. For the sand pits, I just thought 2 sand pits would work. And I think for like a budget of sand, it'd be like, I think $500 to $750. But that's kind of a rough guess.
Okay.
Because I don't know how big the sand pits would be.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
One idea I have, I'm a member of the Dexter Rotary Club, and we had an Eagle Scout candidate come to us and with a request to help with funding, and the club voted some money. And it's possible to raise some of the money for the materials that way. Hitting up some of the local service organizations, because some of them have a budget ready to be dispersed to help with things like this.
And one element that we talked about that keeps coming up too, of course, is safety. And what are the safety protocols, especially for What I've learned is that if it's called a nature play space, it's different than having a playground that's full of metal and plastic things. So, but that's something we will have to explore even a little more. And, we can touch with the city of Ann Arbor, the Eddy Center, the woman that oversaw that project is pretty helpful. She sent some things. I think Roy, you had.
Yeah, I've talked to her, yeah.
That he sent. And also the city of Ann Arbor, they built a play space. And so there are people that we can kind of touch base with and try to figure out some of the safety things. So it's not forgotten.
What kind of, I don't know, time are we allowed to write questions down or talk to the township attorney?
Mm.
Do we have that access?
We'll get it.
Okay.
But don't, we have to have a proposal, right? But isn't that the timeline? We'd have a proposal and then we would.
So I have some questions too, when it's my turn.
Oh.
Anytime.
So very formal here.
Yeah, well, I'll wait, because I
No, go ahead.
talk too much, so. Thank you for, you're willing to do this on behalf of Scio Township. And if, I know I arrived a little bit late coming from work, but, do you have a written proposal or are you in the idea stage?
We're in the idea stage, so.
So how many acres is it back there?
Well, it's actually on the sheet I gave you, but I think it's around 3 or 4.
And how many acres are you gonna propose it?
Probably like 0.1.
All right, and what are the ADA requirements for safety and accommodating folks with disability, all those kind of things? And I'm just kind of giving you some tests of the kind of things that you're gonna be probably asked.
I do not know.
Okay.
For those safety stuff, I have to follow the guide to safe scouting, which, like Rita said, if you identify as a plastic play area, it's a lot more stricter because there's a lot more stuff with it. If it's a nature play area, a lot less strict. For disabilities, it can't be anything that's like, it's gotta be level. And so we talked about that as well. Everything has to be level. There can't be really a lot, there can't be any tripping hazards. Can't be anything that like someone could run into or like get like sharply cut. So everything has to be pretty smoothed out.
How would your proposed use impact either walkers, pedestrians out there, or the Scio Flyers?
Scio flyers wouldn't be affected because that area is still for themselves and they can still use it. The area would be totally separate from the flyers. For people who are walking their dogs or anything, the trails are still there. We're just going into a space that's currently not being used for anything and making a space for the playground.
Would you be putting in benches and dog waste bags and tables to sit at or anything like that? What's the scope of what you have in mind?
The dog waste bags are already out there from what I've seen. They already have their posts. And since we have the idea of making a stage, there'd be stumps there for people to sit, but we could also make a bench or two for other people to sit who aren't using those.
And would you be consulting with a planner, someone who kind of does this for a living, knows the best practices, how to lay these out? Or you get your fellow scouts get together and say, wouldn't it be cool to have this here, or do you take a look at what natural features are there and kind of work around those? How do you come up with your plan, your vision?
I would use you guys. And so you guys are my resource, but I could also use people in my scout troop who have done Eagle projects, who have experience in making their own benches for the Eagle project. So I could go to them, I could go to you guys, I can go to my dad because he's done an Eagle project before. And I could also just search the web and see how it's done professionally or amateurly and seeing which one's the best option.
Do you have like a timeline from like idea, like here's when I want to have my plans done, here's when I want to have the work crews, here's when we need our inspections from the county or whomever does these inspections, here's when we want to have a grand opening, here's when we need to do you have a project or a timeline plan yet?
For the timeline, I am limited until my 18th birthday. So that's I would like to get it done before I start my junior year. So that would be the end of August of 2024. And so probably starting to work on it either in April or March, maybe as late as June, and getting it done with before then. The paperwork I can deal with later.
A year and a half window?
Next year.
This June,
9
like,
Oh, like 9 months.
this summer.
Spring.
What are
So,
you going here? Get out there.
so using all the rest of the winter and early spring to plan it and give my proposal. And of course, once I give my proposal, it'll take some time for it to get approved. But once that happens, I would use the rest of the time to get the materials and then sort when my work days are gonna be, how many work days I need to get it done, and what time I plan to get it done by, which hopefully I wanna get done by before my junior year, which is next August. So,
So you're just a sophomore right now?
yeah.
John, that's where Alan Samuels will be helpful too, because he has experience, Brandon can consult with them too.
And maybe Carlisle Wortman, they also have they help with the PP,
DEA,
the pros plan.
pros plan, yeah.
They have I think there might be resources, I mean, maybe you can't use those, I don't know, if those schools requirements are, but there might be some Carlisle Wortman or OHM or other resources that would be available to him if that's something.
OHM,
Pardon?
OHM.
Is that our engineers, like how strong is this, will this hold people, kind of engineers and planners.
Okay, and that's where what Rita's saying, the natural play space versus playground distinction comes in. So that's what we have to figure out, because we're not building a playground here, right? It's, yeah.
It's just kind of a play area.
Okay.
But if we did need to, or it might be a real learning experience to consult with them.
Yeah, there might be resources available from the township to help them if you needed help, if that's allowed, I don't know. What the rules are.
And ask.
I like the idea of getting, I haven't met him yet, but Alan, I forgot his last name.
Alan Samuels,
Alan Samuels,
he came to meet everyone. Were you not here for that?
maybe I did meet, at any rate, I like the idea of getting him involved.
And Alan, I don't know for anyone else that doesn't know him, he also is really knowledgeable about ADA kind of equipment and it's very inspirational.
Well, in his presentation, he was talking about kids in wheelchairs, having things for them to play with because they can't get up obviously on the structure. So I think, yeah, that's great. Gonna have as much of that as we can.
Any other question?
Would you mind just saying again the next steps?
The next steps would just be coming up with what ideas we want to do, what kind of things that would need to be done for those ideas, which ones are easier to do, which ones would take more time, and coming up with those ideas and then putting those ideas into action and putting them onto paper, and then putting in my proposal would be the final next step.
Will you send the play space subcommittee a draft of your proposal?
Yes, I would, once I get my proposal written up, I would send it to you guys first and then send it into my troop before I get it approved by them.
Great.
So would it,
He kind of needs to do that because you guys need to approve everything to do before he can.
would it make sense then if, as we were just out there and you kind of got a sense for, at least some of us were saying, well, maybe we could go this far and use these trees as the border and so on. Would you be able to go out and measure that space as part of your proposal and then not necessarily use all of that space? Because what your ideas were, there would be still space left over. But with that space in mind, how would you lay out your things to do? And then as we talked about it possibly in phases, your phase is phase one, and then that leaves us other space to do things down the road. Would you be able to help sort of guide us in that way?
Yeah, I could help you.
Okay.
For the actual proposal, from what I've heard from Ms. Caldwell, my Eagle advisor, and other Eagle scouts that went through the process, the actual proposal is pretty simple. It's mostly just a basic description of what I plan to do. So I wouldn't need the actual measurements of everything.
Okay.
Or I might need the materials I plan on using and how many people I plan to need and when I plan to get it done by, but I don't need how big the everything is or how much of each material I would need. That would be left more towards after I get it approved. But I will go measure out and see how big of the area I want and what can go everywhere.
But part of presenting that budget would be to know how much, for example, your example of sand. Well, is your pit 5 by 5? Is it 15 by 15? That's gonna drive the cost of your sand. So you're really gonna need to have some measurements of
Yeah.
most, if not everything, to really then be able to put a price tag on, okay, I need this much sand, it costs X. So it would help to have some of those dimensions on your proposal so that there's a way to put a dollar figure to it.
Or you guys, I would present that budget in the proposal I give to you guys. But for the Eagle thing, I'm not actually supposed to envision like anything like that. I'm supposed to kind of leave that for afterwards, because I know you guys are the ones giving the money, so you need to know what the money's going towards. But the Eagle board is kind of just seeing what kind of project I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do for it, what I need for it, and how long is it gonna take. For you guys, I would make the measurements, see how much of each thing I would need, and then present that.
Well, then
to
you
you.
just need to say, I need sand.
Yeah.
For us, we need to know how much.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So you'll have, yeah, okay, great.
So like, yeah, first step is a concept. If you develop a concept, we accept your concept, and us, here you go, troop would accept the concept. Then we sort of like get into the details, where it's like, it's gonna be this by this, and need, so many cubic yards of this, so many square feet of that, and so many stumps and blah, blah, blah. So first it's more the concept, then get into the details, sounds like.
Okay.
And at that point, it would go to the board. Once we get into the more detail, right? Because there's, and not to say it has to be square around, but it could be, you could just decide we're gonna have this structure here, this structure here. But the board would probably want, as John's saying, some
Yeah.
more detail.
I'll let them know at our next meeting. Our next meeting's, I think January 9th or 12th, but so we got a January meeting, and he should probably talk to Joyce Parker if he hasn't already. Have you met with our township manager? Okay, because she does a weekly report. She can let the board know. That way it's not news to them.
I think this sounds great.
Yeah, exciting, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome to stick around, but you're also welcome to head out.
I'll stick around to get the contact information for Joyce Parker. And
I can email that to you. Thank you so much.
what is your name? The one with the laptop open.
I didn't
John
give.
Reiser.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should probably introduce ourselves real quick. Could that be what he's already met with us?
Great. Yeah. My name is John Reiser, Reiser.
You know it again.
Reiser.
Oh, sure phone number, please.
I don't mind putting it on the record, 734-478-6103. 478-6103.
So Brandon, John is our representative from the board of trustees.
Are there any other questions?
Are you gonna have concept drawings or photos or like, what's your presentation gonna look like? How are you gonna sell it to us? And I'm not anti this, I'm for it, but how are you gonna make us wanna do it?
I can go outside and get pictures of like what areas the things would be, and then I would come up with pictures of like what's gonna be in that area. And I would present that to you for each area I choose on. What could go in between the areas, like a walkway, or if they have like a certain connecting, what would be in the area, like what materials and how much of the materials I would need for each area.
Are you good with PowerPoint?
I know how to use presentation.
Okay. An actual presentation, here it is, here's an overhead, this is what I want here, here's some options here. That might help us kind of digest it, assimilate, see what is gonna go on. Maybe, I'll leave
And
it
that
up
would
to you.
be helpful for the board.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you to.
And you get good PowerPoint.
Because at the end of the day, we're gonna wanna help out an Eagle Scout, but we're also gonna want something that works for Scio Township, that's safe for Scio Township and improves that space for everyone's use. So keep that in mind.
So So, Brendan will be in touch too. And I think it is good for you to meet Joyce at some point, the township manager, and we'll figure that out, and also connecting you up with Alan Samuels as well. Okay.
Hey guys, thank you for having me and my dad. Happy holidays. I probably won't see most of you until January, the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Does everyone have a copy of the minutes from November in front of them, or have you had a chance to peruse them?
I do and I have.
Okay. Kathleen Brandt pointed out the one correction. Are there any other corrections or?
Yeah, Jonathan Greenberg has a, it says Jonathan Green. So, and I don't think there's an H in his name, or there is, but toward the end, and not Jonathan, it's Jon. And then Greenberg.
B-U-R-G. Jonathan, Jonath. Greenberg, Greenberg.
And that was, then toward the bottom in blue, where the planning commission has sent out letters to various landowners. I think that is the, yeah, thank you. Did someone catch it already?
Yeah.
Inlonik is spelled, I think, L-O-N-I-K without the C in there.
That's right. Did I spell Jonathan's name right? Is it with a B-U-R-G or B-E-R-G?
I didn't think it was Berg.
Now that I just spelled it, I think Kathleen can tell us.
It's ERG.
E-R-G, thank you.
E-R-G, and there's no H in the beginning, the first one, yeah.
No H, right.
Okay, all right. And is there a motion to
I'll move the
Approve.
revised.
the revised minutes? I'll second. All right. Now we'll move on to.
We got-
We have to vote on it.
Oh, jeez, I always forget to vote on the minutes, don't I? Every time. Okay, and we need to do the roll call, don't we?
No,
We
just
vote?
all of it.
Did
All-
that. All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Opposed?
Any opposed? I better lose my job one day.
No, you
Okay. All right, so let's go on to reports and I think starting with parks. Amanda, do you wanna?
My gosh, yes, I'll report. Sorry for those watching on Zoom, the camera's been really twitchy today. Oh, hope you're not motion sick. Parks updates, a few items. Sam's last day was yesterday. Bria Sheffer, I think, is working a couple more remote hours, and then it will be Bria's last day as well. So I am now the sole parks staff member yet again. It was great to have both of them and all 4 summer staff. I am working on budget for EPP, which we'll be discussing later today. I'm also working on mapping all of the properties. So summer staff did a great job making trails and getting them all mapped. So now it's time to really look online and see all of the different places that have trails on the internet of all the Scio properties, and then figuring out which ones are up to date, which ones aren't. So all trails, for example, OpenStreetMap, for example, there's places where the trails are available and aren't quite correct. So I'm working on that. Last parks update from Joe Maynard on the Van Curler North parking lot. today he said that Eric Fryer should get out there next week and get it going on site. So before that happens, I'll go out with Joe and just double check. I think Rita has volunteered to come out with me and just double check that all of the trees that are supposed to stay will in fact stay. And then that work will be underway. Super exciting to have that parking lot available. I'll keep you updated. I'll probably send out an email once it starts happening, just because I'll be excited and it'll be fun for folks to check it out.
So Miss Dig has to come before they start.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the trees that are being cut down, was that this proposal we were looking at a few months ago where we were gonna combine it with another one to save money, but that's this one standalone?
Yes.
And part of one of the line items I thought was using the wood for firewood. I don't know, we were gonna get some money out of it. But did we finally, I hope, decide we're gonna hold on to the cut trees? We can use them, if not for this play space, but other things.
Parts of them.
Yeah, I believe, I'll double check with Joe, but I believe the understanding right now is that any large tree that has to come down will be used to kind of mark the parking spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, when I go out there with him, we'll chat and try and say what we can for the play space. That just makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Saw an eagle out there the other day.
Where?
I was talking myself out of it, cause I was like, there's no way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what?
An eagle.
Eagle.
eagle there the other day, yeah, it was
So
just,
beautiful.
yeah,
Some bald eagles around, I know.
there, yeah. There are, but I like tried to talk myself out of it, cause I was like, I'm not in the UP right now.
Kind of feels like you are. It's beautiful.
It is a really beautiful property. That was really awesome to see that there.
I live like close there, and one day I was outside and we had an eagle chasing a hawk, or vice versa. They were chasing each other, and it was dramatic how much bigger that eagle was than the hawks. Hawks are pretty big.
Pretty
The
big,
eagle looked like a giant next to those hawks.
Yeah, that's very cool.
They don't like each other.
Oh. Planning. Chris is not here. Oh.
Chris is no longer on there.
I was gonna say, I didn't see his name on
I don't
the
think he's on there.
roll call. No, he's not listed.
No, he's not. And do we need to have someone from planning, or will that be a liaison from planning?
In our charter, I think it suggests that we should have representatives.
What? I'm the BOT rep on planning, and I can give an update. And with respect to the update for planning, they welcomed new members, Ryan Yapel, Andrea Rothney, and Bob Walsh. They elected their leadership, which was Jan Culberson got reelected as the chair, Bob Walsh for secretary, and Bob Hyde as the vice chair. Monday's session included a training PowerPoint presentation about, planning by Carlisle Wortman's consultant, Laura Krebs. And then after that training and intros, we talked about the kind of ordinances that we're gonna be kind of taking a look at. Planning Commission, they can't spend money, they can't approve things, they pass along recommendations to the board. And that it will be that way with respect to ordinances. And some of the ordinances is the Jackson Road Overlay District. That is what should be on Jackson Road. Obviously, someone thought car dealerships was a good idea because we have a few of those. But is there something else that could go there? And if it's so, do you put the building really far back and have a lot of parking, or do you put the building up tight, closer, like kind of Pittsfield's done over there on Ann Arbor Saline Road, if you've been over there by the Target, Meyer, Starbucks, Buddy's Pizza area. And so taking a look at, how high should you have to have 2 stories? Should you have, what can we do to have, mixed use? How do we get some residential in there, other uses? And where do you do it? You started at Wagner Road, you start in the middle, you started at Jackson Road. So that's the Jackson Road Overlay District. that's where the sewer is, the sewer line is, so that's kind of where development centers around, because otherwise you have to deal with community wastewater or septic tanks. Another ordinance that needs, kind of taking a look at updating potentially is a planned unit development. And a planned unit development is where you take oftentimes a large parcel of land, or you redevelop a large parcel of land, and you do something that it isn't currently zoned for. You zone it to PUD, but there's some give and take between a developer as well as the township with respect to benefits, and does it preserve natural space? Is there a benefit to the township? Sometimes the planning commission might have an idea for what it should be a suitable benefit, but it comes to the board level and the board has a different idea, and that kind of frustrates folks because they've been operating with one mindset, and that might not be what ultimately the board is. And sometimes these things take, these projects can take years. So you might have one planning commission, one board, they get turned over to another planning commission, another board, and then things can get complicated when developers are faced with a different set of situation. Another thing we need to look at is the best management plans for stormwater, reviews of the uses in each of the zoning districts. Should we do anything about parking? Should we have, it used to, once upon a time, you had minimum parking. You had to have a lot of parking. Now it's like, now you want people walking, you want people biking, you want people taking the bus, that kind of thing, scooters, whatever they get around on these days. So what do you do about parking? What should your EV requirements be for parking lots? Where should it be? What about bike parking? So that's something that we need to kind of take a look at. If I didn't already say solar, what about residential solar? What should there be ordinances on residential solar? So those are projects didn't come before them last Monday, a couple nights ago. So that's kind of a little PC report.
Something else that's happening with some of the members of the planning commission, I know Jan was facilitating a meeting with a facilities contractor. And the way that how that could impact us here is I know this facilities contractor met with a Scio utilities guy and a maintenance guy, and Scio doesn't have a facilities director. So there's nobody really, every building in Scio is sort of, you have to like fend for yourself. So if there was a facilities director here, that would be a great resource for us. So like it reminded me of when you brought up the park benches. And we were like, who's gonna move them? Like, you're not, we don't have anybody to kind of help or any resource to call on when it comes to stuff like that. So that might be kind of cool to have if we get facilities person in Scio, that would be just another resource that, we could call on for, we need help with stuff. Cool.
How about land preservation?
We meet tomorrow. We are also working on our budget. I think it's safe to say that everybody is very excited about the Van Curler property opening. Really excited about it. Three of us did a hike around there 2 weeks ago. It was really, really great. They've done a wonderful job with the trail. And we're just continuing property. We have several applications that we've received in the past few months from property owners, and we're just continuing conversations with property owners who might be interested in conserving part or all of their property in the future.
And roads. Do we have anyone? Want to do
Roads. Yeah, so we're looking at, we sort of created a subcommittee to look at how we're gonna fund roads. Because we had a 10-year SAD, $85 per parcel. That's wrapping up, and if you get your taxes, you see you're getting a refund back on money that wasn't used. I think it's about 1.6 million that's gonna be refunded back. So we need to come up with a plan how we're gonna fund roads moving forward. So that's what we're working on developing, and then also develop. And we're looking, the plan that we did 10 years ago just looked at the connector roads, like the Peters, the East Delhi, West Delhi, Marshall, the local gravel roads, pretty much. We ignore all subdivision roads. This time we're looking at incorporating everything, subdivision roads, paved and gravel, and the local connectors, rather than just looking at one subset. It's about 30 miles of local connectors, about 30 miles of gravel. And here again, be public gravel, private roads, but by law, you can't use public dollars to fix a private road. So just clarifying that. So that's what we're looking at doing, figuring out, how we're gonna fund roads for South Township in the future. So we have to put together a package and eventually present it to the board of trustees and figure out probably be voted on millage voters sometime in 24, 25.
The general budget basically takes care of roads unless you come up with a special tax of some kind.
Right.
All that. Okay. Do we have enough money to take care of the roads?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, most townships have dedicated millages or some kind of revenue source. If you wanna, or you just don't fix the roads.
Or you pass the hat and create a set among your neighborhood.
Right. Sometimes you put SADs, you can do that. And there'll be a lot of work, a lot of, you gotta give
Majority, it's like.
And we are developing policy for that, we are updating that policy, special assessment district policy, which would be available for private roads. It is, available right now for public and private roads. It's just.
And the LPC or the BOT, I'm sorry.
Same time, I did a written report. So, I also emailed it to Anna and Christie. I don't know, you guys ordinarily upload reports to the packet, Anna? So if there's anyone in the public watching, I emailed it to Christie, Aiken, and Anna and Joyce, and I think Christie can upload it to the packet as a late edition when it gets there. So, I just kind of summarized in bullet point, the November 14th and last night's, board of, trustee agenda. So I put my phone number on there, same one I gave to that kid. So call me if you have any questions about any of them. That's funny. What's your phone number? Oh, I like it. So call if any questions, and members of the public look online when you have a post.
So the PPP approvals, that's great.
Yeah.
Liz
Liz Hoy.
stagger the appointments, or how, any idea what the, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
I'd have to look at the packet. I didn't
Okay, that's
include that
okay.
detail, but
Sorry.
it's in the packet from,
Good.
and the board is also in January. One of the things we're gonna be doing is taking a look at our appointments. And when should they're kind of staggered. If you're on staff, can you imagine trying to onboard this person on this date and this person on this date? So we're trying to, I think there'll be a movement to do them all on around the same day of the year. Now, one, to get them staggered so that we have new blood coming in and some more experienced people who kind of know the ropes. And then maybe bringing everybody on and whatever that date is, so that the people who onboard us, into the system, the email, the payroll, the training, the packets can kind of have an easier time to accommodate staff. So those two things are coming. We're gonna have that discussion. I believe it to be in January. That's a good question.
Okay.
I guess we can all look at this.
Yeah, I don't expect people to read a
Right.
page, single space report. I don't want to encumber.
Tim was also reappointed to,
Pardon?
Tim Redmond was also
Yes.
reappointed.
Did I leave him off?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was that last
A
night?
2-year term. He was last night.
Yeah,
And the 3 of us were the 3-year.
yes. So right, that's on page,
It's at the, about the
yeah,
10th.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. If you could handwrite Tim Redmond and Liz, if you could not tell him that I forgot him, I'd appreciate that.
Not on the record.
Yeah. Okay. Tim Redmond, Redmond. Thank you. Liz. All right.
Yeah, I just went on the,
Anna, you can, as a Microsoft Word, you feel free to have that.
the township website and I noticed that all of us are still on. Chris was the only person that wasn't on and it shows when our end date is, which
Yeah.
mine is next December. And I'm just gonna bring this up. I don't know if it's on our
Yeah.
agenda. We will need to, consider, electing new officers in this committee. So, I think how we did it before, I don't know if we should talk about it more at the next meeting. What do you think? Roy and I kind of,
Yeah, that's what we talked about, we'll bring it up today, but I guess next meeting.
so think about if you would like to, have one of the officer positions. And,
I'm the secretary of LBC. I'm gonna take myself out of the running
okay,
because I can't do both of those things. Or this and that, but I can do the place-based.
so, I don't know how, I don't remember how we did it when I was with Parks before. I mean, if people just kind of, you can let Roy and I, if you're interested in taking one of the officer positions, I guess.
Right.
Or, just communicate with us and give us, let us know you're interested. And if not, we'll just pin you down next time. But anyway, and I can go either way. I mean, if someone wants to. I think it's kind of good having a co-chair, but I don't know how if we want to continue doing that way. We did it this time because we merged these two committees and Roy was involved with TAP and I was involved with Parks. And I was kind of the last man standing anyway. I think Chris was on TAP as well. And Steve. So anyway, but we thought that would be good to have someone from both of those committees since there was a merge. And, I don't know how we want to proceed in the future. I just realized it's been a year,
Y'all have done a great job.
about a year.
By
Did
the
we
way.
actually?
Yeah,
Yeah,
about a
last
year.
December. So it is time to,
Thank you. Keep it up.
but it is time to revisit this and open it up for new
Like,
officers.
we're willing to do it again, but if other people, we don't want to just say, hey, we're it, but if anyone else would love to do it, I'm happy to step down.
Yeah.
So think about that between now and our meeting in January.
All right, let's see where we are. Oh, the place-based committee. Since, I don't know how much we need to talk about that since we've just met with Brendan. So if anybody does anybody have a question that this is burning in your mind about the place-based committee that we didn't answer?
I guess the only thing I would say is, Brandon's talking about his portion of Township Park. I think also a year ago or so, we talked about, making a walking trail to get there. So I mean, really you almost need to do the walking trail in conjunction with his project because you make an ADA park out there that you don't have access to. Because right now, we really don't have ADA access out to that area. So I think that'd be something we need to coordinate. Not that it has to be done exactly at the same time, but it is coordinated because you don't want to say, oh, we built a nice park that ADA people can't get to,
Right.
So it would be nice to do what we were talking about, get our arms around that and so it's at least coordinated so we know, if our trail project's ahead of his or behind it, just so it all sort of end of the day.
Right.
A year from now, it's all together. It's like, oh, we have half of it done, we don't really have a plan for the other half yet.
Make it more accessible, we need to improve the driveway that goes up there, is that it?
Yeah, we need some type of surface and level.
It's, right now, it's kind of a large ballast, large
Right, yeah, it's, yeah,
rocks,
that
we
would,
need some
yeah,
finer stuff
yeah,
on
fine,
there.
like crushed limestone, like a finer.
But we're gonna put something next to that. It's not, we're not expecting.
Right, we talked about
Driveway.
converting two spots right at the end there into handicap spots that have a walking trail that go from those
Yeah.
spots. We all talked about is having through the parking lot and go along there. So you can actually get there from the front of the township hall all the way to the back too, and then loop around, the whole, where the walking trail is today, just we could make it a little bit different. And then the big loop, I think it was on that drawing that he had, big loop, then he'd have two places to access
Yeah.
his, little playground area, one from this side, one from that side. So I think that's something we'll need to get our arms around. Not necessarily the playground committee, but it has to work hand in hand. So it's like, okay, there's a plan.
Isn't there kind of a catch-22 somewhere in the asking questions of the township attorney before we have a proposal exactly kind of nailed down? Because, for example, the ADA, well, what's the level mean? I mean, there's gotta be some ability to rise and you.
Yeah, I mean, a
would
walking path, you can have 5% grade.
Okay, well, so that's the thing, then
And
to
oh, wait,
know
I'm
what
sorry,
it
no.
takes to create that path, you'd have to know what the parameters are first.
Yeah,
And
there's
then you
standard,
could budget
ADA
it.
standard.
Okay, so we can,
I'll wait a moment.
okay,
And I do that in my day job, so I've done this before.
yeah.
And another thing that Brendan brought up as we were walking back was having some signage, because we keep talking about how no one knows there's a park back there. And so he was saying maybe we could, and I think he's willing to do that, or maybe it'll be another Eagle Scout, but to have some signage with some kind of playful way of following the signage back to where the playground is. And just make it kind of fun, and it could even be marks on the ground, but, I think if you're thinking people might come in on bikes, they might not be using the driveway so much. If there's another pathway, we had talked about that before too, is making a separate pathway. Coming from Z Road, so you're not coming through the parking lot to get to that place.
Comes all the way.
Right, use the sidewalk. So anyway, but he was also talking about signage to let people know, yes, there's something back here and here's how you get to it. So all of these things are.
Components of it, right?
Right.
Would the shared use with the flyers be truly at the same time, or would they, if they're having an event, would the space still be in use by, as a play space?
Good question.
Well, I was thinking about all that stuff when I was saying, like, what's the Flyers contract say with respect to the.
That's something that's gone around the table several times, and I don't know if we have to meet with the attorneys to figure out, can we close down the playground if they're having a big event, or do we need to?
We don't
Don't
need
think
to.
so.
In my conversation with the Flyers, they're really open to sharing this space. They just haven't really had to because not a lot of folks use the space. But when they're out there flying on the field, kids can't be in that grassy area as a safety precaution. But kids could totally be playing in the play space area, looking up at the airplanes. That's perfectly safe and fine, according to my conversations with them.
Don't you worry about sort of a no-fly zone? What if a plane kind of goes out of control and lands? I mean, seriously, you gotta figure out how much of that do you need to pay attention to?
They do have,
Yeah,
they have their own rules and regulations that they follow. And it's all on their website, so we could double check that as part of the play space committee. But I believe that's why they have that mode field, that's kind of the no.
oh, no, I'm sorry, I was talking about our planned play space.
Yeah.
There must be airspace above that that's
Oh, I
used, I
see.
would think, and if you're in the proper space, you could still maybe.
Is there? Do they fly them that far?
I think we're in the woods, right? This is,
No.
or is he thinking about in the woods?
Open
No.
space.
It's just a little circle in the
Walk
middle
up.
of,
Yeah, and this is, this part of
Yeah,
the close, yeah,
yes,
wide open.
okay,
Yeah.
but it's not much space, it's little.
right.
Yeah.
And there are trees separating us from the field, or where the play space is gonna be, there are some trees there.
Yeah.
But if you've got a plane that
Yeah,
has trouble coming.
right.
Well, the Flyers do rent from Scio Township and there is a lease. And so that could be, we could revisit that lease and maybe put some regulation to keep the play space safe if we want to.
Kids can wear their bike helmets.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, right now, we have walking path on that same area.
Yeah.
It's open all the time.
And it's open all the time.
So I mean, there is a risk,
Right,
but
right, yeah,
that-
yeah.
but we, obviously, those are things we need to, explore. But I'm guessing these flyers coexist in other places in this state, in this country? I really.
I mean, you can put up a sign that says, caution, when there's planes flying, there's planes flying, you know?
Yeah, can't fly a
You don't like
kite,
the
can't
tail?
fly a kite the same day that you're flying the planes, right?
If you don't wanna be here with the planes flying, then come back later.
I mean, Anna and I have met with the flyers, the people that are in charge, or the head guys. That might be something too, that we can invite them for a short conversation about
Yeah,
As we-
coexisting and, you know, rules of engagement, how we plan to do this. It might be good to-
Your idea of whether this area that's being proposed is problematic.
And this is another thing we've got around, is like, it's
Right.
kind of township.
Right, it is township property and
It's
it's
not, you know.
not their
I-
property, it's our property.
Do we have anything, did he leave any written product?
No.
no, he's really just beginning.
It is.
Yeah.
We just met him today.
You'll let Joyce know?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got emails from him. There's some written correspondence.
Mhm. Okay, good. All right, let's see, was Bria going to present something to us?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, appointment review, we just talked about that, so
Yep.
we're good with that. Is Bria on?
great. Yes, Bria is with us. Bria, are you here on Zoom?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. So as a little intro, this is Bria Sheffer, who was summer staff and then stayed on to help out with Parks and Reserves maintenance. And Bria is particularly interested in, if you're in Van Curler and you're walking along the trail, it kind of opens out into this old field, prairie, beautiful open space. Bria has a lot of experience doing ferns and invasive plant management, and this field kind of sparked her interest. And she's come today to share some ideas around how to manage that field and to get to hear your questions and to kind of brainstorm continued involvement with the township on her part. Bria, feel free to add anything to that, and then let me make it so that you can share your screen. Okay, can you share your screen?
All right. Let's see here. There.
Awesome.
See if I can get to a present mode. There we go. Can you see that?
You can
Yes.
see that.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
great.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So thank you, Anna. So yep, I'm back with more ideas. Yeah, I was the intern there at Scio summer, which was a great experience, by the way. So thank you for that. It was amazing. I just recently started a job at the Huron-Clinton Metro Parks as the natural resource volunteer coordinator. So I've been there about like a month and a half so far. And so I think it was maybe like a month ago, I took a class through MSU. It's called the Conservation Stewards Program. Just kind of learning a little bit about like different ecosystems in Michigan. And part of that class is doing a capstone project. So that kind of kicked off my idea for this project. And it's something I feel really passionate about and I think could continue. So I guess, let's see. So generally my idea is in that field that Anna mentioned in Van Curler is to restore that. It's about 6 acres, restore it to a native prairie ecosystem, and then use interpretive signage to educate the public. And I'll kind of come back to this in a little bit more detail later. But first I wanted to show a couple maps of Van Curler. So you can kind of see where Van Curler is here. Outlined in orange in each of those maps is that 6-acre field. And we have the black dotted line, which is the trail that was put in this fall. And then right on the north side there, I think is where that parking lot sounds like it's going in, which is awesome. And here's a picture from this past summer of that field, what it kind of looks like right now. You can see the deer running through there. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. And then some historical imagery. This is really interesting looking back into this. That same field is outlined in green here. we can see there are fields like all around it, except for this little patch of woodland south of what's currently that leftover field. That looks like it was untouched. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we go even farther back using Michigan Natural Features Inventory. Same field outlined in green. You can see the trail and the band curler outline here. But looking at this is really interesting. So we can see that what's currently that old agricultural field back in the 1800s before it was developed was Black Oak Barren. You can see the river and the Dexter Huron Metro Park down there. So the Black Oak Barren is kind of like a prairie savanna ecosystem, mostly open. You can kind of see in the picture there with scattered trees, primarily oak trees. So from this, I can get an idea that, okay, this used to be actually a prairie, which makes it a great site to try to do a prairie restoration. And here's just some examples of some native plants. In this field, when we were out there this summer, I've seen mostly non-native plants. There's a native plant, Canada goldenrod. That's kind of like that yellow goldenrod in there. That is native, but it can kind of turn into a weed and outcompete native plants if it's not burned and managed. But there were a few pockets of native plants, which were, I think, big blue stem, Indian grass, bergamot, and New England aster, which you can see big blue stem here, New England aster here. So I guess if this is a project that we're doing, here's some restoration management strategies. First one would be prescribed fire, which I would say is very, very important because a lot of these open ecosystems historically were managed by fire in Michigan. So that's like a key component. Another thing we would do is plant native seed, just to kind of, get those native plants established in there. And that would take a little bit of research to figure out which plants we actually want to plant in that field, based on like the soil conditions. And something that's really helpful is the Michigan Natural Features Inventory for oak barrens includes a list of species. So since we know that used to be an oak barren, that would be really helpful in figuring out what could grow really well there. Another management strategy would be controlling invasive plants, cutting all autumn olive, removing any herbaceous invasives that are growing in there. And something else I'll mention is that this would be kind of a long-term project. It can take up to 3 to 5 years, according to the Nature Conservancy, to reach those desired conditions of diverse native plants, and get to the point where we can kind of step back and just manage it and make sure we're maintaining it. And so I did kind of a general cost estimate based on a prairie restoration guide from the Nature Conservancy. They would estimate about $1,506 per acre. That's as of 2013. So that'd be a little over $9,000 for 6 acres. I'm guessing that would be a little bit more now based on today's prices. But that would be based on how much management we're doing, the amount of seed we're buying and planting, the prescribed burns that we're doing. So I included David Bornman here. I'm actually part of his prescribed burn crew. I just contacted him recently asking about, like a cost estimate for a prescribed burn. And then we have Michigan Wildflower Farm over on the left side there. That's kind of an example where we could potentially buy some seed. So this is just a general idea. I would need to look into it definitely in a lot more detail. Then back to this project idea. So with Van Curler being new, the trail going in, parking lot going in, I think a lot of people are loving it for just like the topography and the variation and the different types of ecosystems that seem like they're out there. I think this could be a really cool project. It would help our wildlife and our pollinators having those diverse plants. And then just even having that diverse native plants in there, it could become kind of an educational piece to go along with Van Curler, which I think could be really cool. So it would be educational. We could also set an example with like doing this type of work. Could be really cool. And I will also mention, I have worked with the DNR for a year doing like invasive plant management, and I've seen what it can turn into if we don't manage it. So like that field could turn into just shrubs if we don't do anything about it. So instead of having it go that direction, we can actually make a positive impact and turn it into something great. So if this is something that the Parks Department wants to do, the next steps would kind of be creating a restoration management plan, outlining as detailed as we can, you know, kind of what's our plan, what are the steps, how are we going to do this, reaching out to some different sources, working with the Metro Parks and with my contacts in the DNR. I feel like I have pretty solid resources to draw from and like ask for advice. If we do this, I would ask that the project be funded by the Parks Department. I would work with and update the Parks Department through email or by attending meetings every couple months or more often, kind of depending on what's happening, just on whatever research I'm doing. I could kind of take control of the planning and like the reaching out, finding resources and things like that, and then work with the Parks Department and the committee for more of like the logistics and approval side of things. And so, thank you. Do you have any thoughts and questions?
Yeah, thank you. This looks fabulous. Very exciting. Just curious, I think you mentioned that the prairie we're looking at or talking about used to be a prairie and now it's not, or how did that work again?
Okay, yeah, so I kind of worked backwards, I think, a little bit there. So pre-settlement 1800s, it used to be kind of a savanna ecosystem, so mostly prairie with some scattered trees. And then it got turned into agricultural field. And so that little 6-acre chunk of field right now used to be agricultural, along with a lot of the surrounding area, which is now turned into trees or development. So that's kind of like the last little open chunk of space in that area that did actually used to be prairie.
So I'm curious, when you manage species, invasive, natural species, whatever, is there a sort of a, depending on the area, kind of a approach to this? Because like, do you say, I want 20% of this and 40% of that? Or is it, well, this area needs this kind and this area needs this kind, regardless of percentage? How do you manage that? What's the formula for that?
Yeah, so managing prairies, I feel like kind of depends on the site. With my experience, it's been a lot of invasive plant control and removal. And then, wait, let's see what's happening here. There we go. So yeah, a lot of invasive plant control, and then definitely a lot of like planting seed, managing through prescribed burns. I don't know like the specifics of how we would look at this, but I think we definitely would want to have some sort of monitoring protocol in place, a very clear outlined goal for, you know, what's our final result, what do we want to see, what percent of different types of species do we want to see in there. And like something that brings to mind is with the prescribed burns. Usually we've had, at least like with my prescribed burning with the DNR, they have a very clear goal. We want this percent of shrubs killed and we want to stimulate native plants. So that's kind of an example of like, you know, having very clear outlined goals and how we want to reach that. So yeah.
No pun intended. I wasn't intending to get into the weeds of it, but the idea of the overall 30,000 foot view of how you manage those kinds of things. So you go by either areas or what seems to be like certain swales might be more wet than dry, and some plants work better there than up on a hill with more sun. You know, it's the big picture approach like that to manage, right? Is that?
Yeah. So you definitely, depending on the site conditions, is going to change, you know, like how you're managing that, how wet or dry the site is. And then also doing like a little bit of that historical research, what used to be there. And try to reestablish that kind of like in the bigger picture. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
So one of the goals that I would imagine if we're doing this native prairie is to have as much native plants, but as much diversity as we can, depending on the soil type, as you say.
Right.
You know, but I think the diversity is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Agree
yeah,
with this.
I agree.
Was this field recently a planted field, corn, beans, that sort of thing? It just went wild once it was no longer planted?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know exactly the type of crop, but looking at that historical imagery, it does look like it was an agricultural field that was just let go. Probably more recent than some of the other ones that have already grown into trees, since it is still pretty open. There's just a few shrubs growing in there. But yeah, it used to be agricultural field and it was just kind of let go. That's what I would say.
Can I ask, how big is the parcel or the area that you want to establish into a meadow?
That's about 6 acres.
And what's on there now? Autumn olive and garlic mustard and, you know, purple
Yeah.
root stripe, or is it drier, or what, and, you know, do you have like work bees where everyone comes out and you pull things, you cut things, you chainsaw, you whatever you do to get rid of it?
Right, yeah. So what's out there right now is primarily, from what I've seen, Canada goldenrod and Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace is a non-native plant. Canada goldenrod is a native plant that can kind of turn weedy and invasive if it's not managed with fire, mostly. And then we also do have some of the autumn olive that can grow in really quickly if it's not managed. So one idea I had with this project is involving volunteers. We could take volunteers out to help manage the parcel, remove autumn olive and treat it so it doesn't grow back. Removing different invasives once we get the native plants kind of more established in there. And then volunteers could also even help with planting native seed and some different aspects of that and kind of turn it into involving the community with that.
Roy Townsend, I work at Washington County Parks, we manage quite a few of these prairie things, so I'm excited, this is great, you know. And another great resource for you, I'm not sure, you know, Katie Carlisle that works at HCMA. She used to work at Washington County. I mean, that's her, pick her brain, she's an expert at doing this stuff, and because she used to work at Washington County Parks, she managed all our preserves. Now she's at HCMA, and she started doing the same thing. Some of the stuff at Hudson Mills and some of the stuff in Dexter Huron. She's managing those, so it'd be a good resource. Obviously, I know this is not part of the Metro Parks, but you know, pick her brain, because she's done a ton of this stuff, and I would agree. A controlled burn, you know, hiring someone to go out there to do a controlled burn, that's always works. Get, you know, some of that stuff, and then having volunteers. I think would be, a lot of people would be interested in doing this. So no, it's exciting to do a prairie restoration, you know, get some seeds out there and get some stuff, because it's amazing. You know, you do that burn, you get some seeds in there, how it can transform an area like this.
Yeah.
In a few years, how quickly, because sometimes that seed is already there. You do that burn, gets where the invasives, the natives come back and get some seed out there. It's like, wow, in a few years, like, wow, this is amazing. So exciting to hear you're interested in doing this. So it'd be, and for one, Van Curler's already a gem, and put a nice prairie in the middle of it. It's already exists. We just gotta do some management to bring it back. So it's exciting.
So is this something that we budget for? We're talking about it as the plan? How do you go from a vision to like, hey, let's do this, and how do we do it? How do we budget for it? You know?
Yeah, so I have been chatting with Bria a bit, and I appreciate you pulling together some rough numbers. I think if the PPP committee wants to move forward with this project, which I'll share as Parks Director, I think it's a great project. One, just because we have Bria, a bright mind who has experience in all of this, interested, who wants to help out. And then two, I think it's an excellent case study for further restoration projects and controlled burns in the properties. Yeah, it's a perfect beginning spot to see who we'll work with and what will work and what won't. Oh no, I lost my first, oh yes. So Bria's pulled together the rough numbers. If we want to move forward, I think Bria could do some more research and I'll help out, and we can hone those numbers and put a placeholder in the budget. And then Bria, you can let us know what is the timeline for your research? Like, how much time and energy are you going to put into the research beforehand? How can I help you? And then, yeah, roughly what would the timeline be?
Yeah, so I don't know like I guess the exact timeline. I'm definitely willing to put in a lot of time to this because I think it would be really cool and a lot of fun. And so I think I would definitely want to do a bit of research beforehand and kind of come up with the plan. But yeah, definitely coming up with more specific numbers, reaching out to some different sources, Dave Borman for prescribed burn, looking at different seed, what kind of seed we would want to buy. And so some of this could start happening this spring, which would be really cool. But yeah, so I'm willing to put in a lot of time to this, a lot of research, work with everyone and figure it out.
And I have a question about seeds. I'm wondering if it's possible that we can get seeds without buying them, if we could collect them. We did that, just a small project that we attempted to do at Marshall Park. I'm not even sure how it's gone. But I don't know if, I know the volunteers loved collecting seeds at some of our, I think it was David Reed's property. And he was very generous and kind and let us come a few times. And it was the people that did manage to volunteer to do it, loved it. That might be something to keep in mind if there's a way. I know the botanical garden does a seed exchange. I don't know if it's probably a good place to consider picking up some seeds too. I'm sure Dave Borneman knows a lot about where to get seeds. He's been involved in this forever. Another question I have, if this is a capstone project, I agree, like what is not only the timeline, but what kind of time range are you expecting to invest in this project? Because like this does take a while to really get it to catch on and get it established, and then the management, which is, that'll be our job, which will be, but anyway, so as far as your capstone project, like how much time do you see investing in this?
Yeah, so for the project itself, so the class is done. At the end of the class, we didn't have to have a finished project. We at least had to have a solid idea. So I have this idea. I'm definitely willing to, take charge of this. I guess, yeah, since it does take so long, up to 3 years and onward.
Right.
I definitely want to be really involved with the beginning of it. Coming up with a plan, starting on prescribed burns, planting seed or collecting seed, planting that. So definitely through next summer and fall, and just kind of work from there. Maybe even like delegating roles, like what's the parks department going to do? What am I going to do? So that's I guess not really defined yet, as far as timeline goes. But I think if we do have a solid plan in place, then that will help because I can do it. Or, if I'm by a year or two later, if I'm not really as involved with it as I am in the beginning, then there's something, we have a plan in place, we know what we've done, that the Parks Department can continue that.
Is this a project that might warrant a small subcommittee to work with Bria on it?
Like you're saying, a small group of people from the committee?
Yeah, it's a question for the committee as well as yourself.
Yeah, I can see that in the future, once this plan gets rolling, Bria has a little group she can text or email, so. Yeah, I like that.
And Anna, to what you were saying earlier, once the township sees how this works, once Bria has it underway, this would be a wonderful project for the Sykert property on Park Road. It is just made for the old fields on Park Road. It would just be, would be a larger project, I guess, but that would be really exciting. It's cool. Thank you for the idea.
I absolutely have a blueprint for using it in other places, regardless of how long Bria can hang on to this particular project. It'll be a great groundbreaking idea for other things. I got just two questions. I'm just curious about prescribed burns. I have no idea how this stuff works, but I'm so.
What can go wrong?
Yeah.
There's a video.
But I would assume, for example, that there's a lot of things that go into this, not only the logistics and the safety and the training and of course, all of that and how you manage a burn. But that there's a reason you would choose a burn over, say, taking a rototiller and turning over the ground. Is the burn like a more complete way to wipe everything out, then it leaves nutrients for the soil that the seeds then get a hold of, different or better than just turning over the soil? Is that kind of how that works? Well, is that why you would do a burn?
Can I,
Oh,
so one reason that I understand that you do prescribed burns is because the native plants are, it's a natural phenomenon for them. It's
okay.
it's a way of weeding out plants because the non-native plants, a lot of the invasive plants don't respond well to burn. Bria, am I right? That the
Yeah.
native plants respond to burn.
Right, yeah, so that's a great question. With prescribed burning, yeah, since it was such a historical thing, with a lot of the prairies and savannas in Michigan, they were maintained by fire, either natural or Native Americans setting that fire. And so the fire keeps it open, sets back the shrubs that might try to grow in. And it also stimulates the native plant growth. So we could have native plant seed within the soil that once you burn it, that seed will actually start growing. And another thing too, like if we're burning in the spring, that basically prepares the seed bed. So then right after the snow melts, burn comes through and then it's black and the sun comes down and warms that, and it can actually stimulate that plant growth a lot more. And so we don't want to be turning over the soil, because with that soil disturbance, that's where we get a lot more of those invasive plants growing in. And so you'll see a lot of invasive plants in those old fields and along those old field edges because of that soil disturbance. So that's why fire is so great. It stimulates the plant growth, knocks back the invasives. Since the invasives aren't adapted to that fire, but the native plants actually need that fire. So that's why it's such a great tool.
So then for people like me that walk around there that don't know anything about what I'm really looking at, the signage, the other interesting thing that you were talking about, I'd love to see, as you, of course, we're gonna have educational things on your signs, but to talk about why prescribe burns, unless maybe you already had that in mind, but to really, not just this is what I'm looking at, but this is how I got here, this is how we manage it, to give the community more understanding of how that even got to where it is. That kind of a historical look, a present view, what we have in mind for the future. I don't know, maybe that's too much, but some of that educational signage of those kinds of things would be really terrific, I think.
Yeah, that would be great, especially like with the prescribed burn. Having done prescribed burns with the DNR, I've seen the public not understanding why we're doing it at all. So having that signage as well would be awesome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, great, okay.
And maybe we can come watch and see how you do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Does your vision of this include the possibility of some areas of excluding deer for reducing the browsing pressure?
I hadn't actually thought about that, but that could be worth looking into.
What, signage?
Deer. No deer allowed.
Are you familiar with the prairie? I guess prairie is the right word. In Hudson Mills, there's the big open fields with the long grass. And is that what it would look like?
Could be similar. Yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah, you're
picture.
talking about as you leave, going up towards Hudson Mills, last summer they burned all that. You talk about as you
I wasn't
leave.
aware of the burn, but there's some areas there that are quite open with long grass. I
Yeah.
love it.
So
Yeah, exactly. So,
beautiful.
yeah, that's an area that, like I said, this Katy Carlisle last year, they burnt all that. And the long blue stem, it just jumped out because it used to be, it was okay, but Liz Falls really in summer looked great because they did a burn in the spring. So that's exactly, all those things really, you don't realize when you do those burns, all those native seeds and the native plants really have a tendency just to take off because they've been under pressure from all the invasives for all these years. And so that's, prime example of that one in Hudson Mills.
Who did that burn? Was that Dave?
HCMA, yeah.
The native grasses, I mean, The thing is with the grasses, they grow really deep root systems and, you know, but trying to get some diversity in there too, which is workable with, when you're using native plants, it just works better. And you have to be careful, like you can put grasses in, but if you put the wrong grasses in, you're just, that's all you're gonna have too. So, but yeah, when you work with native plants, it's getting it kind of, depends on the soil, depends on how much sunlight it gets and things like that. But there are some native grasses, and we even got some from David Reed's property that we put out here.
Have you planted up to 6 acres, but with volunteers gathering seeds? It seems like a big.
That's a lot, that would be a lot of
Big
seed
up-
to gather.
I-
I think we would have to buy some, it's a lot of seed, is it 5 pounds per whatever that was? We had, it wasn't even an
It
acre.
wasn't even an acre.
You know, it was really small and we had to have 5 pounds of seeds, which we ended up collecting, and it's amazing.
Takes a
We
long time
went
to
out
do
a few
that.
times to do it, but we collected the seed and I took it home and spread it all over. I have a room we call the music room. I spread it everywhere and let it dry out and then separated it out. And anyway, it was, well, I didn't separate it that much, but it was somehow we got something. Good. All right.
So I don't know if we need like a formal motion, but are we interested in moving forward with this? I'm super interested. I'd love to work with you. But we thought it would be great to bring it to you all as well.
I'm on fire.
I move that we authorize Bria to begin on this capstone project and provide her with funding if we can do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we need like a,
Do you have, what's your authority for funding in your budget? Do you have that authority?
Yes.
The other thing is, the next item on our agenda is, we'll be looking at the 2024 budget, which will be coming back probably something next meeting. And we can do something today, or we, you know, as we put together a draft budget, just include in line, if there's interest in doing that, just include a line item for this project
That would be good, yeah.
in the 2024
I
budget.
mean, that suits me.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Yeah, we will be meeting to talk about the budget and then at some point it will come out for everyone to see, for all of us to kind of go over. I don't know exactly how we'll do that, but just
Yeah, I
go
think what
through
the
it.
plan is, we're gonna sit down, Rita and Anna,
Mhm.
put our arms around things and bring it back to the committee and say, okay, these are the things. Some of the stuff that's carried over from this year to we didn't get done and stuff, you know, proposing for next year. And so that's why I think I think obviously a lot of support to put this as a line item in the 2024 budget. First, get our arms around what we think that number should be. Put something in there with what's it gonna cost for prescribed burn, what's it gonna cost for the seed, what's it gonna cost to, you know, do different things. To have this project move forward.
And I wonder if what Brandon was talking about earlier about signage being an Eagle Scout project, if there's a way to then, again, use whatever, you know, we can, whatever groundwork Bria can lay for all of the project in its entirety, signage being part of it, and then lift that out and see if there's an Eagle Scout, I don't, maybe I'm just adding
Yeah.
way too much complexity to this, but to, you know, have these opportunities to silo some of these things that can be used all over the place, you know, perhaps. So.
Oh, Bria, I have one more question. I mean, 6 acres is actually a pretty big parcel to burn. And from what I understand, you don't burn like all 6 acres at one time. That would be, it seems like a lot. So you worked with Dave a little bit, and Anna, you have too. These prescribed burns, about how much do they normally burn in one day?
Yeah, so actually 6 acres is not very big for a prescribed burn. I've done prescribed burns where at once we're burning, let's see, with the DNR, I think most we've done at once is 300 acres. With Dave Bornman, we did up to 30 to 40 acres at one time.
Okay, so 6
So-
acres is not a big.
Yeah, so 6 acres is very manageable. I have heard though, like sometimes you only want to burn half of it at once or a third of it at once. and kind of like rotate around to offer a refuge for wildlife and just for some diversity. As far as refuge goes, there are some fields adjacent. So I feel like we could burn the whole 6 acres right in the beginning if we wanted to, just to get everything underway and kind of all start on a fresh slate. But then like in the future, possibly just burning half of it at once, just to kind of rotate and get some of that different diversity spring and fall burns. But yeah, 6 acres is very manageable for a prescribed burn.
For everybody's information, I think there's a video online. It might be, I think it features David Boyman about prescribed burns. It's the Washington County Conservation District or something like that. It has this online.
So as part of the management of this, is a burn a yearly thing? Every year in perpetuity? Is that how you just do that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times they're more like spread out a couple years apart, maybe more often in the beginning just to get those native plants established. But then like 3 to 5 years roughly, or if you have it split into sections, you could burn every couple years, rotating sections.
Well, it sounds like from here, I will get a line item for this project and work with Bria to get some quotes and put a number in there, and then Bria can stop into meetings and give little updates when appropriate. And is that, we good to go?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Bria.
Thank you, Bria.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm excited.
We are too.
that's great.
Right. So we kind of talked about the budget a little bit. I think we can move on. Is that okay? Everybody? Okay. So the DDA and the P3 meeting, it looks like we want to meet together with DDA. Is that what we're thinking, or someone from the DDA?
I'm aware of the time, so maybe I'll just like briefly share this image and say, I hope folks on Zoom can see this. I think so. But now we can't see it in this room. How did that happen? Maybe I moved this one. No, okay. Well, I have a map, but essentially, the DDA board has an understanding that a portion of the PMP millage captured by the DDA will be spent on pathway projects. And that amount is roughly 93,000 per year. And we haven't had a meeting with PPP and the DDA to talk about, well, what projects are in line with the pros plan that we could be using those funds on, or that the DDA could be using those funds on. And Roy made a great point that instead of trying to come up with the projects ourselves, we should probably just meet with the DDA and figure out where our interests align. And so that's all that item is, just to say that we'll be lining that meeting up and we'll talk about it in the future.
And the DDA is the Downtown Development Authority.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that for Jackson Road, is it?
For Jackson Road, it's kind of this like amorphous blob shape along Jackson.
It goes up and down Z Road from Park to the fire station, Baker up to Newman Drive. So it's basically, yeah.
Commercial areas. Okay.
Yeah, and Wagner, yeah. So we think it does this park, I mean, the Township Hall is in the DDA, we believe eventually Township Hall Park could be a park that could help, DDA could help fund.
And having the map, we can try to have that.
You make it smaller.
And this yellow here is the DDA boundary. That's Jackson.
Okay.
And so
It's
along
like a
there, there's
gerrymandered district or something.
opportunities for pathways.
It generally follows sewer, generally follows sewer.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay.
Generally.
Huh.
And this is, I don't know if this question works, but Roy might be able to speak to this. Is it kind of talking about like pathways, bus stops, just transportation kind of thing along this corridor that we would be involved in as far as the path?
Well, I think what they're saying is the DDA captures money, all that stuff in the boundary of, all the business part. And I think what they're saying is a portion of the parks preserves money is captured by the DDA. So I think sounds like they may be interested in, putting that money back into parks or reserves that at least touch the DDA. I guess that's what we have to find out, like at the end of Dino Drive, potentially, that preserve, I forget the name of that preserve.
West side.
West Scio, if we improve the parking lot there. So that's what we need to sit down and find out, okay, what preserves sort of touch the DDA boundary? I'm not sure they can spend money outside of their DDA
You know what I
boundary.
mean? You know what it means by captures money? That means they get the taxes instead of the township getting the taxes. So they get a portion of the taxes, the tax increment findings, it's got the TIF.
Okay,
So it's a legal vehicle for the district, an area, a business, capturing the increase in taxes. So instead of going to the township board for the board to allocate and budget out and spend, it goes to the DDA. So they're like, not like a mini city, but they got their own tax base. They got money to spend on things that are DDA related. They capture stuff from other, whether school districts or libraries or, us. So they get some of our money instead of us. So they get it. And I think that's, how do we discuss how some of that capture might be used on something that would benefit us both.
very good.
And they have been capturing 93,000 for multiple years in a row, is my understanding. But that's something we could get a little clearer on in meeting with them.
Good.
Capturing. Wink, wink.
Okay, well, it's time for public comment and there's no one in the room, so Anna, do we have anyone online?
Yes, Rob Pattinson.
Thanks, Rob.
Kathleen Brandt.
Hi, Kathleen Brandt. I was really excited to hear about the Van Curler Prairie project. I think that's something you definitely should go for. That's the kind of stuff that I think residents would really appreciate. And it's interesting timing because just today, well, I'm going into trying to do a no-mow strategy or partial on my property. And just today, I had part of the property seeded with native seeds. And I'm working with Matt Deeman from Feral Floral. He only does native plants. That's why I picked him. We're going to try to replant some oaks in the back. So I'm really excited about that. Love to see the process. Really encourage you to go for it. And Rita, if you happen to drive by my house, you will see little red flags on the portion that is being seeded with natives. Thanks so much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you. Rob Pattinson, your hand is still raised. Do you have another comment? All right. Thank you all very much.
Can I ask Kathleen Brent a follow-up question?
Kathleen, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
So, thanks for sharing that. How long is it likely to take before you've got growth and flowers, and how many year project, month project is it, and what kind of plants are they generally? If you can share that.
Okay, so my property's been evaluated by Matt, and I have a lot of moss on this property, which I just love. And then near the front, it's a sunny area, but he's evaluated that there's a number of native species already in the lawn. So when I stop mowing, those are gonna come up. I expect what he's putting in to come up in the spring. And then it's gonna be a management effort of how do we maintain it? I don't know what the horizon is, but I expect to see something in the spring, summer. And how many? He's got a bunch of, he actually propagates and collects seeds. He's got, I mean, there must be 14 plants on here: bee balm, yarrow, nodding wild onion, swamp milkweed. So this is for it's for wildlife. And then I get away from having to mow, which is a slight hill there, which I don't want to mow it. It's a hill, but it's the better thing to do. I mean, I don't want to burn the gas. If I can attract wildlife, I'm all for it. And I've mentioned before that I have practically eradicated all of the invasives in my property, plus 3 surrounding properties, the utility line. I just bought a little electric Ego chainsaw, so I'm gonna go after the honeysuckle on Craig Road. You know, it's, I don't know, this is a mission I guess I found when I retired. Or when we bought this property. It's just, it encourages you to you know, take care of it.
Thank you.
Kathleen, one thing you might want to know is some of those things, if you cut them, you might have to treat them. Because sometimes they like to be cut and it just makes it worse. So
Oh.
just, you know, I'm sure maybe you already know that, but
No, thank you. This is a new project for me, and Matt did say that
that can help.
we would probably cut one time in the spring, and then, you know, he's gonna advise me, but I appreciate any help you can give. Thanks.
All right. I believe we can call this meeting to an end.
Move to adjourn.
Anyone?
Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.